The Crosstown Shootout. Always a relatively heated rivalry. You could say that, I guess. Xavier and Cincy. Xavier is hosting this year. Xavier is 6-3. Cincinnati is 6-2. I'm Tanner McGrath. That's Subi. Welcome back to Sleepers Media. So I'm going to start here. I look at Xavier and I think underperform so far. Richard Pitino's first squad struggling out of the gate. 5-point win over Marist, 4-point win over Lemoyne, blowout losses to Santa Clara and Iowa. But this is a totally new operation, right? Of course, they were going to struggle early. Seems like they've started to turn it around a bit. They go to Charleston, lose by one to Georgia, beat West Virginia, blow out Corpus Christi and St. Francis at home. They're starting to find a lot of production from Trey Carroll. So let's start on the Xavier side of thing. What have you seen from them in the early season? Are you bullish or bearish?
I think it's still very early in this
Mhm.
tenure for Richard Pitino. I don't know if I can make any judgments or calls just yet, which is kind of a lame take, Tanner. I'll be honest with you, but I'll tell you what, and I'm going to stick with Xavier. But when you say disappointing or maybe underachieving or underperforming to start the season, that's kind of how I feel about Cincinnati.
We'll get to
And
Cincinnati. We'll get to
yeah,
Cincinnati. Yeah.
so I think that's a more apt description for the Bearcats thus far, and it feels as if pre-Christmas that's what we've been getting in the Wes Miller era. But for Xavier, I actually don't think there's necessarily a ton that Xavier does well. I would say their best attribute is they shoot the three decently. Like they can shoot it from beyond the arc. It also might be defense. They might play a tempo that suits them. Right now, Tanner, if you're asking me if I'm buying into Xavier, no. The answer is unequivocally no. But I do think it's going to take some time for Richard Pitino to implement his system, implement his culture, and start stacking wins. With that said, though, the Big East is pretty much wide open right now, with the
Yeah,
exception of
yeah, especially like outside of that top like two or three.
so if you're gonna try and have a strong premier season, the Big East probably isn't going to be as bad as it is this year as what we think. But from the Xavier side of things, like there's a lot to work on. And I saw some very paltry crowds at Cintas Center, which is not like it's not typical of them. There's a ton to work on, but really I'm more concerned about Cincinnati. What about you though?
Yeah, let's just move on to Cincinnati. I mostly agree with everything you say with Xavier. There's just nothing they're doing well in the early season. I really hope this Richard Pitino defense comes together because he coached really good defenses at I believe it was New Mexico. But all right, so you look at Cincinnati. Xavier has played the far more difficult schedule so far, which is surprising. And look, the Bearcats have mostly taken care of business, but they lost to Eastern Michigan, who, by the way, lost to IU Indy, who lost to LIU, who lost to Fordham, who lost to NJIT, who lost to Cincinnati. So a good early circle of suck moment there. But there is one thing that Cincinnati can really hang its hat on, and that's defense, right? Trended up to fourth nationally in Ken Palm's defensive efficiency numbers. They're a little bit lower in my ratings. They're 11th, but still, Wes Miller typically runs that very disciplined drop coverage unit, although they've been playing a lot more hedge and recover this year, which I find interesting. And so they're forcing a lot more turnovers. Regardless, I never remember how to say his last name, but I believe it's Thiam or Tam, is just an excellent interior anchor who I've seen both drop and hedge. And Baba Miller is a wrecking ball. I mean, 10 rebounds per game, 2 blocks per game, 1.3 steals per game. That's crazy. So what's the problem? They can't score. They
They
can't
can't.
score. They can't do anything. They're outside the top 200 nationally in efficiency. They scored barely point 0.8 points per possession at home in that Eastern Michigan loss. They trailed for all 40 minutes. They are jacking up threes, but they have no shot making. They're getting out in transition a lot because they force so many turnovers, but then they're scoring only 0.95 points per possession in transition. That's 13th percentile. They can't get to the rim. They can't grab offensive rebounds. They shoot like shit from the free throw line. I look at the squad and I think that they could really use Jizzle James' creation right now. His shot creation kind of carried them through the second half of the season last year when they started to trend up more. Do you do you see all the same things I'm seeing?
Yeah, I mean, look, these two teams are relatively evenly matched. And so,
Mhm.
from a Cincinnati perspective, I don't think that's a good thing. If you're a Bearcats fan, you don't want to hear that you're somewhat evenly matched in year what, 3 or 4
Yeah.
of Wes Miller, um, as opposed to the first season for Richard Pitino. And you hit the nail on the head offensively. Like, Cincinnati's really good defensively, but you net out to be an average team when you're just so putrid
Yeah.
offensively, right? Like it's kind of maddening. It's a bit of a mind you know what when you're like we're one of the best team defensive teams in the country, but we can't beat EMU, right?
Yeah.
Like something is amiss there, right? And I'm glad you fixated on the free throws because Tanner, as it relates to this particular game, I know I kind of called out Xavier's crowd. I have a feeling they will be showing up. It's
Yes.
it's a Friday night game, right? It's the it's a rivalry game. I I have a feeling Cintas Center is going to be very very loud. However, when you talk about Cincinnati's free throws, right? I think they're shooting 65% from the line.
64.6%, 330th nationally.
I was trying to be nice. Okay,
Mhm.
64.6, right? Point being, Tanner, is they are a better team than Xavier. I think they have better personnel, but when you're on the road in a rivalry game and you shoot like that from the line, you shoot like what they shoot 30 some odd percent from three. Those are not recipes for winning. And then additionally, one thing we didn't touch on, they turn the ball over just way too much.
Yes.
So offensively, they're such a disaster in the sense that when they keep the basketball, when they hold on to possession, they don't generate good looks. You mentioned they can't get to the rim, they can't shoot, they can't hit from the free throw line when they get fouled, let's say. But when they're not doing that, they're turning the basketball over nearly
Mhm.
15 times per game. Tanner, all of that, I'm not tipping my hand here. All of that, though, really lends itself to a tough matchup for Cincinnati, despite the fact that I do think they're just a better team. They don't they don't execute.
Yeah. 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 And Xavier, like Richard Pitino can heat up the ball. So that also worries me a lot. But let I want to talk about the matchup like at a at large, sort of how these two teams match up and what I'm seeing. What I'm worried the most about with Xavier though is that they've been surviving by shooting way over their heads. You say that they have the three ball, right? But they're shooting under 45% from inside the arc, 333rd nationally, over 38% from outside the arc. That's top 35. They're shooting about 0.21 points per possession over expectation on catch and shoot jumpers. And so far, I mean, Anderson is like he's not turning the ball over, but he's been far from a decent ball screen manipulator or option. And like I was watching their game against Corpus Christi, it just didn't seem like Xavier was doing much but making shots. The game's finished even in paint points, and Xavier shot 43% from beyond the arc. And the Musketeers, I mean, to their credit, they managed 28 fast break points. But you're facing a Cincinnati team that is ruthlessly denying catch and shoot opportunities. They ruthlessly deny the rim, and they're really good in transition defense. So where does the offense come from for Xavier? And what's interesting about this matchup is that these are two transition reliant offenses, but two defenses that are excellent at denying transition buckets. So it's almost going to like come down to half court execution and shot making. And in a vacuum, you trust Xavier more in that department, even if I think they're due for regression against an elite defense, and I think that could cook them. So who executes better in the half court?
I think I trust Xavier more. Really,
Sure.
like I've seen some of these offenses, and I'm not just specifically talking about Cincinnati. I've seen offenses that sputter, that a few shots don't go down, you start to lose a bit of confidence. The defense gets ratcheted up, like you had mentioned, in a hostile environment, ball pressure all over the place, sending doubles if necessary. And I don't know, forcing an early timeout momentum is going to be a hell of a drug in this one as well.
Sure.
So I absolutely think Xavier is going to be able to execute in the half court a little bit better. I don't know, Tanner. I'm a guy that I haven't seen it yet really with Cincinnati against quality opponents, right? And I'm not saying
Their
Xavier
best
is.
win was Dayton. Dayton at home by 12, which is okay. I mean, I like Dayton, but it's not.
It's okay.
Yeah, no, but
Xavier's not a quality.
Xavier also their best win was West Virginia, but they also lost by one against Georgia, who looked really, really good against what was it,
Was it
Florida
Florida
State.
State?
Yeah.
Yeah. So no, look, I don't buy a lot about either of these teams, but
Yeah.
when that happens in a rivalry game, and by the way, Tanner, can I be honest? Last year, I vividly remember doing a preview for this game when it was in Cincinnati, and I was like, Wes Miller, man, this is the spot. This is the year. How many times, by the way, has it been that we've said Wes Miller, this is a make or break year? It seems like it's year 2 or 3 that we're saying this about Wes Miller, but I remember last year I said, man, this is the spot. You got to blow out Xavier, right? I think they were riding some sort of losing streak in this matchup. Last year they won, but they only won by 3, and it's a completely different team. I understand that, but it just doesn't seem like Cincinnati is ready to take the bull by the horns,
Yeah.
truthfully. And so I think this is going to be a very tough game for them. And again, you're playing in Xavier's backyard. Their defense is going to be ratcheted up. Cincinnati's defense is absolutely going to come to play, but Tanner, like, you got to put the ball in the hoop. I don't think Cincinnati's going to be able to do that enough here in this one.
Yeah, so if I'm looking at this correctly, since he won last year, but Xavier had won the 4 straight seasons before, and that could
Mm-hmm.
be even further back now that I think about it.
Xavier was on a winning streak.
Cincinnati did win in 2019, it looks like 2018, yeah. Regardless, shall we get into predictions here?
Yep.
You want to go first? You want to give me your
Sure.
full on prediction? What happens? Final score prediction, whatever you want.
Yeah, I think I've tipped my hand here enough. I got Xavier winning this game 72-69. I genuinely think the writing is on the wall for Wes Miller this year. Losing to Eastern Michigan is way too nasty of a loss. That can't happen. I've harped on Cincy's offense. They leave points at the line. They turn the ball over. They're going to be on the road. I think that's how you lose rivalry games, Tanner. So I'm going to take Xavier winning the 72-69. Very last little quip, though. This is how I shoehorn Arizona. Arizona fans, I hope you enjoy this one. We got Philip Borovichinen on the Xavier side going up against, yes, he's still in college, Kerr Kriisa.
Yes.
So those are some former Wildcats playing in Southwest Ohio.
Yeah, and Creases looked okay, I guess. Believe it or not, my projections, my numbers for this game call Xavier 73-70. So we're pretty close there. However, if I'm going to make like a real sort of like, an analyst prediction, I don't know what's going to happen. I just think that it's going to be a high variance game based on who makes shots in the half court. And I'm almost inclined to think it's going to be really low scoring and that neither team will make any shots and it'll be gross and the crowd will be loud and that both teams will be sort of a little shook. So I'm going to go Xavier wins in like an ugly one, like 60-58, some gross game like that.
I like
Anyways,
that. Just real quick, Tanner. I just want it to be known. Like, I know the way the rhetoric and how I've been speaking about Cincinnati, and then they're like, viewers will say, "Oh, you only took them to lose by 3." Like, that's not good, right? This should be at this juncture of your program. You should be confidently winning this game. Maybe they do, but I'm not confident in it. I just wanted to throw that out there.
yeah, I don't think either of us are confident in anything in this game. Anything can happen in the crosstown shootout. That's Subi. I'm Tanner. Thanks for watching us and check in for more previews. And we'll be back for a recap on this probably Monday.